Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupada Paramahansa Paribrajaka Astotara Sata Shri Srimad Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Primsaka Ho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Mathura Dham Ki Jai Navadip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Jamuna Maya Ki Jai Ganga Maya Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. So today is the appearance day of Lord Krishna, Janmastami. It is the biggest festival of the year in the Vaishnava calendar. Therefore, tonight we will not have a Gita class, but I will talk about the appearance of Lord Krishna. I will read about his birth from the Krishna book. Lord Krishna appears once every day of Brahma to this material world, and he comes to lift the burden on Mother Earth. He comes to show that God exists, God is a person, God is approachable, and he comes and he teaches us how to know him. And once we know God, we can finish our sojourn in the material world. Birth and death will be finished. So, birth of Lord Krishna. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that his appearance, birth, and activities are transcendental. And one who understands them factually becomes immediately eligible to be transferred to the spiritual world. The Lord's appearance or birth is not like that of an ordinary man, who is forced to accept a material body according to his past deeds. The Lord's appearance is explained in the second chapter. He appears out of his own sweet pleasure. When the time was mature for the appearance of the Lord, the constellations became very auspicious. The astrological influence of the star known as Rohini was also predominant because the influence of the star is considered to be very auspicious. Rohini is under direct supervision of Brahma. According to the astrological conclusions, besides the proper situation of the stars, there are auspicious and inauspicious moments due to the different situations of the different planetary systems. At the time of Krishna's birth, the planetary systems were automatically adjusted so that everything became auspicious. For example, Janmastami, Janma means birth, the birth of Krishna, and Ashtami means the 8th day of the moon. But when Krishna appeared, the moon was full. So automatically Chandradev, the moon god, he appeared in his fullness to worship Lord Krishna. At that time, in all directions, east, west, south, north, everywhere, there was an atmosphere of peace and prosperity. There were auspicious stars visible in the sky and on the surface in all towns and villages and pasturing grounds, and within the minds of everyone there were signs of good fortune. The rivers were flowing full of water, and lakes were beautifully decorated with lotus flowers. The forests were full with beautiful birds and peacocks. All the birds within the forest began to sing with a sweet voice, and the peacocks began to dance along with their consorts. The wind blew very pleasantly, carrying the aroma of different flowers, and the sensation of bodily touch was pleasing. At home, the Brahmanas, who were accustomed to offer sacrifices to the fire, found their homes very pleasant for offering. Due to the disturbance created by the demonic kings, the sacrificial fire altar had been almost stopped in the house of Brahmanas, but now they could find the opportunity to start the fire peacefully. Being forbidden to offer sacrifices, the Brahmanas were very distressed in mind, intelligence, and activities. But just on the point of Krishna's appearance, automatically their minds became full of joy because they could hear loud vibrations in the sky or transcendental sounds proclaiming the appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna is known as Brahmanya Deva. Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha. He is the protector of the Brahmanas and the cows. Brahminical culture is very important because the Brahmanas are the head of society. They are the ones who understand perfectly that we are spirit souls. They understand the process to become free from material conception. And with Brahminical culture and cow protection, life is very simple. You don't have to create big factories. You don't have to have big arrangements for material life. Simply, Brahminical culture, keep a few cows and bulls for milk and to grow grains, and the whole problems of life are solved. But these problems are solved only if you understand that you're a spirit soul, and that when the body dies, you don't die. You take another birth. When you understand that the purpose of human life is to break the cycle of birth and death, then you require Brahminical culture and cow protection. To continue, the denizens of the Gandharva and Kinara planets began to sing, and the denizens of Siddhaloka and the planets of the Charanas began to offer prayers in the service of the personality of Godhead. In the heavenly planets, the angels, along with the wives, accompanied by the Apsaras, began to dance. The great sages and the demigods, being pleased, began to shower flowers. At the seashore, there was a sound of mild waves, and above the sea, there were clouds in the sky, which began to thunder very pleasantly. When things were adjusted like this, Lord Vishnu, who is residing within the heart of every living entity, appeared in the darkness of night as the Supreme Personality of Godhead before Devaki, who also appeared as one of the demigoddesses. The appearance of Lord Vishnu at that time could be compared with the full moon in the sky as it rises in the eastern horizon. The objection may be raised that since Lord Krishna appeared on the 8th day of the waning moon, there could be no rising of the full moon. In answer to this, it may be said that Lord Krishna appeared in the dynasty which is in the hierarchy of the moon. Therefore, although the moon was incomplete on that night, because of the Lord's appearance in a dynasty wherein the moon is himself the original person, the moon was in an overjoyous condition. So by the grace of Krishna, he could appear just as the full moon. In an astronomical treatise by the name of Kamanika, the constellations at the time of the appearance of Lord Krishna are very nicely described. It is confirmed that the little child born at an auspicious moment was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Brahman, or the Absolute Truth. Vasudeva saw that wonderful child born as a baby with 4 hands, holding conch shell, club, disc, and lotus flower, decorated with the marks of Srivatsa, wearing the jeweled necklace of Kaustuba gems, dressed in yellow silk, appearing dazzling like a bright blackish cloud, wearing a helmet bedecked with the Vaidurya stone, valuable bracelets, earrings, and similar other ornaments all over his body, and an abundance of hair on his head. Due to the extraordinary feature of the child, Vasudeva was struck with wonder. How could a newborn child be so decorated? He could therefore understand that Lord Krishna had now appeared, and he became overpowered by the occasion. Vasudeva very humbly wondered that although he was an ordinary living entity, conditioned by material nature, and was externally imprisoned by Kamsa, the all-pervading personality of Godhead, Vishnu, Krishna, was appearing as his child in his home, exactly in his original position. No earthly child is born with 4 hands decorated with ornaments and nice clothing, fully equipped with all the signs of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Over and over again, Vasudeva glanced at his child, and he considered how to celebrate this auspicious moment. Generally, when a male child is born, he thought, people observe the occasion with jubilant celebrations, and in my home, although I am imprisoned, the Supreme Personality of Godhead has taken his birth. How many millions of times should I be prepared to observe this auspicious ceremony? When Vasudeva, who is also known as Anakadundubi, was looking at a newborn baby, he was so happy that he wanted to give many thousands of cows in charity to the Brahmanas. According to the Vedic system, when there is an auspicious ceremony, in the Kshatriya king's palace, the king gives many things in charity. Cows decorated with golden ornaments are delivered to the Brahmanas and sages. Vasudeva wanted to perform a charitable ceremony to celebrate Krishna's appearance, but because he was shackled within the walls of Kamsa's prison, This was not possible. Instead, within his mind, he gave thousands of cows to the Brahmanas. So we can note here that Vasudeva was imprisoned by his brother-in-law, Kamsa. Kamsa was the determined enemy of Krishna, and he knew, because of an omen from the planets, from the heavenly planets, he knew that Krishna would kill him, and he knew that Krishna would be the 8th child of Devaki. Therefore, he imprisoned Kamsa, he imprisoned Vasudeva and Devaki, waiting for the 8th child to be born so that he could kill him. So, as I explained, Krishna appears on this world to diminish the burden on the earth by the unnecessary demoniac forces of various kings who are actually demons but pose as a royal order. This is the opening sentence in the Krishna book on the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. When the world is overwhelmed by the unnecessary defense forces of demoniac kings, Krishna himself appears. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. Krishna explains to Arjuna, my dear Bharata, whenever there is a decrease in religious principle, abhyuttanam adharmasya, and when there is an increase of irreligious principles, tadatmanam srijamyaham. At that time, I come by my spiritual potency. So Krishna appears once in a day of Brahma. A day of Brahma is 1,000 yugas taken together. Sahasra yuga paryantam ahar yad brahmano vidu ratrim yuga sahasrantam teho ratra vido janaha. That by human calculations, 1,000 ages taken together form a day of Brahma. So that one Chatur Yuga, or 4 yugas, Satya, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali, comprise of 4,300,000 years. 1,800,000 years is the Satya Yuga, 1,200,000 years is the Treta Yuga, 800,000 years is the Dwapara Yuga, and 400,000 years is the Kali Yuga. Altogether, 4,300,000 years make up one kalpa, one Chatur Yuga. 1,000 such Chatur Yugas make one kalpa, which is one day of Brahma. So one day of Brahma is 4,300,000,000 years. Krishna appears once in every day of Brahma. So we must understand that the time sphere, the time perception in which Krishna operates is far, far, far greater than the time perception which we understand. Prabhupada gives the example of the frog in the well. The frog is living in his well and is only conscious of the water and the limitations of the well. Those are his boundaries. He doesn't know any more than that. When somebody comes and tries to explain to him the nature of the Atlantic or the Pacific Ocean, the frog cannot accommodate it because his conditioning has been limited to the size of the well. In the same way, our conditioning is limited to the 100 years in which we are in this body. But that doesn't mean that there isn't a consciousness beyond that. And therefore Krishna comes every 4 billion years. He comes to teach us, to show us that he exists on another plane. And when he comes, automatically he reestablishes the principles of religion, and he defeats those who are irreligious. Evam parampara praptam. This knowledge is Krishna comes to give in the system of parampara, guru-disciple. Krishna is giving this knowledge Imam Rajasayo Vidu, to the great rishis, and they understand this knowledge. But Sakalaneya Mahata Yoganashta Parantava. But because of the influence of time, Yoganashta, this knowledge of my relationship with the living entities, the knowledge of your relationship with me, Arjuna, has been broken by the influence of time. So, Sa evayam maya tedya yoga prokta puratana. Therefore, I am again explaining this knowledge to you. Krishna is explaining the knowledge to Arjuna, not because Arjuna needs to know the knowledge. Arjuna is an eternal associate of Krishna. He never forgets his relationship. But to teach us, he plays the part of someone who is in ignorance. He plays the part of somebody who is bewildered, who is faced with the prospect of fighting against his relatives. He is faced with the prospect of losing his family members, of fighting his guru, fighting his grandfather. Therefore, he is confused on how to act. But that confusion is enacted for our teaching, because by seeing how Krishna teaches Arjuna, we can learn ourselves what is the process of re-establishing our relationship with God. We must never forget that the entire principle of Dharma, the entire principles of religion, hinges on the fact of understanding that we are spirit souls. Again and again and again, Prabhupada goes back to this point. We are not this body. We are not male, female. We are not American, English, Indian. We are not Hindu, Muslim, Christians. We are Atma. We are spirit souls. But the spirit soul, which is eternal, full of bliss and full of knowledge, can only manifest that situation of bliss, knowledge, and eternity when he is connected with the Supreme Soul. Just like the spark of the fire, there is no difference in quality between the spark of the fire and the fire. However, the spark only manifests its full brilliance when it is connected with the fire. And it has the tendency to fall into the ash. When the spark falls into the ash, it doesn't cease to be a spark, but it ceases to manifest its effulgence. So when the spirit soul becomes disconnected from God and falls into the material world, his natural eternity, knowledge, and bliss becomes covered by the illusion of the material world. Therefore, the key to make progress in life is to understand our spiritual nature. If we do not understand our spiritual nature, no matter how many adjustments we make in the material world, we can never be happy. Take it from me. You may be a man with a beautiful wife, or a wife with a handsome husband. You may have all material facilities, but you cannot be happy in the material world, because our happiness depends on our connection with Krishna. And to establish that connection, Krishna appears. Sambhavami yuga yuga. Krishna says, I come again and again, millennium after millennium. And when he comes, he brings his knowledge. He brings knowledge of his connection in the form of the Bhagavad Gita. He brings his associates. He trains many, many devotees, many, many rishis, many, many yogis. And that knowledge is again re-established. And Krishna establishes this knowledge through the medium of Arjuna. Krishna, you cannot contact Krishna except through devotional service. And to actually see Krishna and re-establish your relationship with Krishna, to regain your spiritual body, you need to be purified. Otherwise, there is no direct connection with Krishna. The connection is indirect. Even when we go through the process of bhakti, we are considered liberated because we have got onto the boat which will take us across the ocean of ignorance. But it doesn't mean we've reached the other side. But as long as we stay on the boat, we are safe. So in the same way, when we begin devotion to Krishna, Krishna takes responsibility for us. And gradually, by his association, by reading about his birth, by understanding how he comes to this material world to teach us. Slowly, gradually, our relationship with him becomes again manifest. It is already there within our heart. You don't have to get your connection with Krishna anywhere else. It is just covered over by the illusion of the material world. But Krishna Siddha, Nitya Siddha Krishna Bhakti, Shraddha Kabunai. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that Krishna Bhakti, or love of Krishna, it is Nitya Siddha, it is eternally there within the heart. Shravanadi Sudachitte Karayodo. And by hearing and chanting, it becomes manifested automatically. Just like if you take the embers and the ashes of a fire and you begin to wave a fan, you begin to make a fan, to fan the ashes, suddenly the fire becomes manifested in all its glories. So similarly, the spark of the living entity, when we hear the activities of Krishna, then automatically our fire of eternity, bliss and knowledge becomes manifest. And therefore, Krishna appears in the material world to give us an opportunity to reawaken our connection with him. There is nothing else. There is no demigod, there is no material situation, there is nothing else except our relationship with Krishna. Take it from me. So, Krishna says, his birth is not normal. Jamma karma chame divyam. Krishna says, my birth and my activities are spiritual. We read today from the Krishna book that when Krishna appeared, he didn't appear like a normal child. He appeared like Lord Vishnu with 4 hands, beautifully decorated, holding the conch shell, the mace, the chakra, the lotus flower, with a beautiful helmet, with long black hair, with all kinds of ornaments, with a kastuba jewel hanging around his neck. So Krishna appeared as a supreme Lord. That is called Jamma Dibyam. His birth is Dibyam. Also, he was not conceived by Vasudeva and Devaki the way normally children are conceived. He was conceived in the heart of Vasudeva. And when he was fully realized, Vasudeva transferred that knowledge of the realization of Krishna to the heart of his wife. In the same way that if we read Prabhupada's books, if we accept Prabhupada as our instructor, as our teacher, then through the heart, Prabhupada will teach us the knowledge about our relationship with him. There is no material impediment. So, Jamma karma chame divyam. If you understand this very simple thing, Krishna is so powerful that if you simply understand that his birth and activities are spiritual, tyaktva deham punar janmanaiti. You don't have to take another birth. In other words, you get onto the transcendental boat which will take you across the river of ignorance. Mam eti konteya, you come to me simply by understanding my nature. Of course, understanding Krishna's nature presupposes that you engage in his service. There is no question of understanding Krishna and not engaging in bhakti. It doesn't, then if you don't engage in the devotional service of Krishna, then you don't understand Krishna. When Krishna was present, many people saw him face to face, but very few understood who he was. The only people who understood who Krishna was were those who performed ahaituki bhakti, or selfless devotional service. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu prays, Nadhanam najanam nasundarim. I don't want any money. I don't want any wealth. I don't want any followers. I don't want a beautiful wife. Kavitam va. I don't want to be known as a learned person. My dear Lord, what do you want then? What I want is Jammani Shware Bhavatad Bhaktir Ahaitukitoi. Please let it be birth after birth. Even I don't have to become liberated from this material world. I will stay in this material world provided I have unalloyed devotion to you. because unalloyed devotion to Krishna is the only means you can understand. Otherwise, you can have so much knowledge about Krishna. Krishna can be present before you, but if you don't have that devotion, Krishna does not become manifest. He doesn't reveal himself within the heart. Anymore than you would reveal yourself to someone who is inimical to you, or someone who denigrates you, who doesn't give you the proper respect of your position. You cannot make friends with such a person. First, a person has to understand who you are, appreciate who you are, then you can reveal your heart. Revealing one's heart is like jumping into the deep end of the swimming pool and you don't know how to swim. So when you jump, and Krishna will catch you. This is the... All right, so Krishna comes, of course, as Krishna, but he's so kind. Not only does he come as Krishna once every day of Brahma, he also comes in many, many other incarnations. Ramadi Murti Shukalani Amena Tishnan Nana Avatara Makarod Bhuvaneshu Kintu. Ramadi, beginning with Lord Rama. Krishna has many, 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 many incarnations. And by our time scheme, by our time perception, we think that Krishna comes because, for example, Lord Rama appeared 2 million years ago. Lord Krishna appeared 5,000 years ago. But in the scheme of universal affairs, even within the material universe, 2 million years is nothing. What to speak from the point of view of Krishna. So Krishna comes to this material world, and when he finishes his activities in this universe, he enters into another universe. And he keeps moving through the different universes like the sun moves through the different sections of the day. The sun appears, and tonight it will set, but the sun is not disappeared. It has only disappeared from our vision. The sun continues to shine further west that he goes. So similarly, Krishna may disappear from our vision, but he appears in a vision in another universe, another universe, another universe. Therefore, this is called Nitya Leela. Lord Krishna's eternal pastimes, and they are enacted simply to attract the living entities to go back home, back to Godhead. I see that comments didn't come up again, so I will end the lecture now and go to the ISKCON Amsterdam page and see if there's any comments there. Thank you very much. Shri Krishna Janmastami Ki Jai. Haribol.